You are listening to Seniors Junction podcast. We are working to eliminate seniors isolation, one conversation at a time. Your hosts today are Namrata Bagaria and myself, Paul Merkley. We are the co-founders of Seniors Junction, and our special guest today is the CEO of Chartwell Retirement Homes Canada, Vlad Bulgarski. Welcome, Vlad.
Good morning.
Chartwell's very well known, of course, but still, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. I've been with Chartwell now for 17 years. November is going to be 18 years. Since 2003 is when Chartwell went public and listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It was a combination of three private companies that came together and then acquired a few other homes. And since that time, Chartwell grown to close to 200 locations across Canada. We actually used to have a US business as well that we sold in 2015. Right now, we're 200 locations across Canada with serving 30,000 residents and employ 16,000 people across the country. The focus of the company is to deliver exceptional personalized experience to our customers. And to do that, we're trying to employ people who are driven and purposeful about that delivery of personalized experiences. This industry that, as I said, I've been part of for 17 years now, just continues to amaze me in that it attracts people for whom work with seniors is not just a job, it's not even a career. It really is a purpose and calling, and it hasn't been more pronounced than it was in the last 15 months during this pandemic. The heroism of our people, the resolve to keep our residents safe, engaged, and even entertained during this very difficult time where they could not see their own loved ones. Our employees were providing them the supports and engagement in our homes that they could not have obtained anywhere, even and especially probably if they stayed in their own home because of that isolation that I'm sure we're going to be talking more about.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And before I ask my next question on isolation, I wanted to understand, when you've been 17 years in an industry, in different roles, how does that as an individual help you understand better and contribute better to the industry?
Well, this is one of the things that I think also keeps a lot of people in our sector. It is never static. It's always evolving and it's always something new. I can tell you, even from sort of business perspective, when I started 17 years ago, most of our general managers in the homes were nurses who had very little business background and always been providing great support and services to the customers, to our residents, to the families. But there was very little business sophistication when it comes to maintaining the building, creating the environment that is suitable for people, creating programs that help with isolation. They were great caretakers, but they were not really more of strategic or holistic views of the operations, didn't really present in every building. And over the years, this sector evolved and matured. I mean, it's relatively young sector. We have this sector as sort of business environment probably for 40 years or so. Before that, it didn't really exist. And so it's relatively young. It's still in sort of, maturing stage, I would say. And so then we started employing people who are more business oriented, who could look more as they're holistically at providing services to the residents. And now with having 200 locations and having the support that we have on the corporate side, you can see the difference that it makes in how homes are run. First of all, having a cohesive mission and values that sort of unite all locations together and all people together at Chartwell is extremely important. But also that sophistication and support that national management platform can provide to our individual residences. as becoming more and more important. So, as you start thinking about building and putting all these blocks in place, it seems like 17 years is a long time, but when it involves now 16,000 people across the country, making a change is a long and very involved process that requires lots of planning and execution and change management. And that's what keeps it very interesting for most of the people in the sector. And sector mature, I'm not talking just about Chartwell. As sector matures, it grows, there's a number of larger companies and they all go through the same sort of evolution. And so being part of it is very exciting.
That's awesome. So now coming to my question is, how do you look at isolation? What are the pain points? And in your case, I would say, what are the pain points even as a business? Because everybody will tell us the psychological health. So not just that, but also from a business point, how is isolation impacting your business or even the residents?
So one of the biggest challenges I think that we have as retirement residences operators is that we operate in this environment where you look at any study that's been done, people would say they do not want to come. Certainly not to the long-term care, but certainly not to retirement homes. And so we operate in this environment where those who do not live with us do not want to come with us. Those who do live with us tell us things like, these are best 5 years of my life. I wish I'd moved 5 years earlier. And this is my home. I'm never moving anywhere from here. And this last statement was from a person who won $4.5 million in the lottery. Actually, it's a true story. One of our residents did that. So how is that those who experience, and I would say Chartwell experience, no pun intended, and those who do not have such a divergent views, right? And so that's the challenge of Chartwell and our sector, is to convince those who have not experienced living with us of the benefits of that. But it's a huge change for anybody, like moving, and I know Namrata, you moved a lot and it was relatively easy for you, but when you're in your 70s, 80s, it's not an easy decision, very hard decision for a person, for a family. Yet it's still, I would say, significantly beneficial for health, mental health, isolation issues. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's isolated in their homes. I don't care how many friends you have or how many Zoom meetings you can have. The question becomes one of purpose in life, one of engagement in life, one of interests. And you need to have an environment for them. We'll talk maybe a bit later about how to solve these issues. I actually don't have any recipes, but one thing I do know, it's not going to be one solution for everything. It is going to be a combination of multiple different solutions. Your classes that you're offering is one of them. That's fantastic. There is maybe meaningful work, finding meaningful work for people who are after retirement age, and maybe it is caring for their friends who are the same age if they are able to do that, or engaging that on a different. I tell you the story. I was doing the we call it Listening to Serve You Better program in the summer of 2020, trying to understand people's experiences during the pandemic. And I had 12 sessions across the country with different residents and families, just to talk to them about that and get feedback to see if we can get better in preparation for the second wave of the pandemic. And one of the residents told me, you know what, I just took it upon myself to check in on 4 people who are frail in my retirement home, because they had been isolated in their rooms. They couldn't mingle because they had an outbreak. So she would call them every day, all these 4 people, just to talk to them about it. And so that creates an environment where people are able to do that and either find meaning for themselves, or both actually, find meaning for themselves and support others that are in the need of that support. So retirement homes offer that environment because you are in sort of one setting with your friends, and you can build friendships, you can develop relationships. We have many stories of weddings, of people getting together and finding their matches in their homes, and you have supporting, caring staff to help you out when the help is required. So how do you create something like that for people who are in their homes? Technology is one of them. Certainly, ease of access to these technologies, to these solutions, is what extremely important. I find this with my parents myself. I'm still working on trying to convince them that they need to move to Chartwell, but they don't speak English very well. They're immigrants. I sponsored them to come here in '97, and they still have a circle of Russian friends that they interact with, but you could see that circle becoming smaller and smaller as time goes by and their needs progress, and accessing services that are available in the community to some degree is extremely difficult for them because of the language barrier, because it's just, you go on the internet, you look, and there's Google search with a bazillion different things that you may or may not need. So that ease of access is difficult and needs to be solved for people who are still in their homes. And that ease of access, arguably, at places like Chartwell is solved because it's all in one place. You can just go to the front desk and ask them to help you with whatever the help you need.
You've answered a lot of this question already with things you just said, but could I ask for anything else you'd like to tell me about your vision of addressing this? Maybe you want to speak a little bit to what you think about purpose.
Yes, I think it's, again, creating this environment that is supportive for, and I'll talk about Chartwell specifically, for our residents in these homes. As I said, we look to deliver exceptional personalized experiences, and the word personalized as we were coming with our strategy statement, we debated a lot that word because, on one hand, people could say, okay, well, if you're saying it's personalized, then whatever the resident wants, you're going to give it to them, right? Well, maybe not everything, but it's really for us to get to know our resident even before they become our resident, to understand what exactly our wants and desires are, and then tailor service offering. And often it's really not something specific that you need to do every day. It's more about people's interests. Some people interested in art, some people interested in building new connections with other people. Some people are interested in wellness and trying to access these exercises or whatever other programs that are available. So our drive is really to understand our residents and to tailor our service offering to what they really value, interested in, or want to try if it's a new thing. And so I think that word personalized got to be prevalent in whatever solutions you as a new startup or anybody else is trying to come up, because as I said, I believe it's not going to be one solution that's going to solve this big problem. And yes, it's one big problem for pretty much all seniors out there, but how you solve it will be different for every different people. Of course, there are trends, but people are all different. There are no two of us that are alike. And so I think solutions really need to be tailored to individual needs and wants, and that's what we're trying to do at Chartwell.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you spoke, it resonates with Paul and me, because we yes, we're a new startup, but isolation is something we both have experienced firsthand. For me, it's more of a lifestyle choice because I work and travel in so many places, and it comes along with it. Like you have to like kind of work your way through it, and then that's how you end up having a company in it through lived experiences. And then so is in Paul's case. But I think I just want to touch point upon, I think there's a spectrum between social connectedness to purpose. And as Paul and I were working through making our company's business model, the very core structure model from which you can get off all your recommender systems or personalization services, right? There's a logic behind what you do. And I think where we are understanding as we meet more people, talk to more people, is first of all, you may have different kinds of life challenges. So that's variable and that's within out of anybody's control. So that's, but what is very common or what is very certain is the spectrum from how disconnected you are to how connected you are, with purpose being the highest form of being connected. Because a purposeful person will not be disconnected. Now, yes, you could be introverted. You'd like different activities, like you may read a book or go alone hiking, So that's one piece of the understanding of your connectedness preference and which is who you are. And the second piece, when it comes to companies like us, I think when we offer recreation online, that's a starting point for us, because these are ways to sort of understand the person. But if you really see what happens is when you just do an activity without understanding how it's impacting your life. So the analytics is what our company is trying to be different with. And not because it's a company, it's also what we feel like. We both are I'm PhD in process, Paul's a PhD. We observe things differently. You don't just do a thing. Like for me, the podcast was the only way I could talk to another person. This podcast and the other one that I had before is an outcome of me trying to deal with my isolation living alone. If how do you meet people in the industry, how do you network for business, or how do you even learn a new thing, all that. Okay, let's try a podcast. Everybody like, so for me, I think some people are very proactive and they can have those personalized and self-driven solutions. They may end up making a company or being volunteers, right? They're really, really highly proactive. But even such people, they have certain areas in their life where they may not be very good, like say healthy eating or sleeping enough or all those kind of things. So at this stage, I think for me, as I see, there's isolation is so vast and so permeating that you may do well in one aspect of your life with it, like say, you may be connected, but you may be lacking in personal care, self-care, because a lot of, like, we interviewed people and we find out that many seniors who move to senior homes eat better. Once they move into these residents, they gain weight, they do better. So I think those kind of things are very, very interesting for us to discover, and over time then help companies like yourself and other retirement residents to really understand what's happening, and also understand that only 5% people live in where retirement homes, the waiting list is off the roof. So how can we translate then your experience and your expertise to the community and, make a difference? Because many people want to age at home, but the knowledge is there, right? So how do you translate to whatever is the best option available within that scenario? So yeah, I think given that it's I think you talked around personalization as the end purpose around the main things. What do you think are the motivators for solving this through this approach, and what are the challenges in this approach?
Just want to build on something you said about, some people are more naturally inclined to search for engagement and purpose, and that is true. And it's probably a little easier for them to be more connected than for others. I also think that drive probably not as strong as you get older. It's harder. And as the circles are getting smaller, it's getting harder and harder. And that's where the environment that people are in, I think, matters a lot. And that's where, again, and I'm certainly biased, so I'll keep talking about Chartwell or retirement residences.
Yeah.
That environment's already present in that setting, and it's harder to do it from home. And so how do you do it from home? To me, this is creating this ease of access, and not just sort of communication. I guess it is, everybody can log in computer and Zoom call a friend, or there are some resources probably in the community that they could reach, or some clubs, or Facebook groups or something like that. I'm just not certain that that's the type of engagement that keep most of people going and interested. And you talked about the purpose, and what is that purpose? Like, once, Paul, I read your newsletter and your story that is very personal about, one day you were teaching and then the next day you were retired, and your wife passed away, and then what do you do? Like, life is disrupted, right? All of a sudden, probably two very important purposes in life have changed now. So I don't know. As I said, like, there's no easy solution to that, and you solved it or continue solving it for yourself, Paul, and kudos to you with this engagement and all the other activities that you're doing. Once again, it's going to be personal for everybody. So how do you make it easier for people? That's really should be the question, not how to solve it, because everybody will have to take some action to solve it for themselves.
Yeah.
But how do you make environment more conducive to people's ability to solve? And I don't know, technology is part of it, I suppose. Ability, I was thinking about it a lot. We haven't done anything about it at Chartwell just yet. But it's the purposeful engagement, to me, or to a lot of people, means work. right? People go to work and they find purpose in what they do. And you know, who says at 65 people cannot be doing work, or at 70 or 75? And some do. And so, is there any ways to create more opportunities for people who retired or semi-retired to continue to retain that purpose through being gainfully employed and doing things that benefit the society? And the reality is, I think, that we have actually, as a society, no choice. I mean, they're talking about by 2030 something, there's going to be only 2 working people for every retired person. So
Yes.
society has no choice but to ask the retired people to continue to participate in the workforce in some shape or form. And that will create benefit for society, that will create engagement and purpose for retired people as well.
Mhm.
Again, how you do it, I don't know. I don't have any recipes for you guys, but I think that's why you're here and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, sure. But that's a great answer. And I have like 2 points to this. It's just such a great conversation, but I have like 2 things that came to my mind. Uh, so if you look at our vision and mission, we say social connectedness is a skill. And this came from like trying to eat better, trying to move better. It's the same thing. Being purposeful or connecting is a skill. It has a spectrum. And one of the key things, if you look at habit building or any kind of life changing behaviors, the first thing is you need to have an optimal environment. And if not, you have to work on that environment. Because so if you're going to, have friends who eat a lot of junk food, you're going to gain weight, right? So that's proven research. The only difference is you're cross applying that from one domain, let's say healthy eating or whatever, to now purposeful connection. And that's why we focus on engaging on a continual basis. Like our programs are not one time only. You have a 8-week event, so that it takes time to decide to be friends with someone. Sometimes yes, you have the spark, but that's not all the time. So that's on purpose. Our infrastructure is social by design, so we really put efforts. And the second part about gainful employment. So most of our faculty members are retired seniors themselves, because these are professors or doctors, who have so much of and they're workaholics previously by nature. They don't even know what else to do, you know. So I mean, I'm sorry, Paul. You have like
No, it's fair. It's
you,
fair comment.
you
It's fair
are
comment.
okay. And usually the typical is like they'll take 2-3 years off once they're retired, let's say, do everything they want, and then it comes back. Okay, what should I do with myself? And I think I know Paul precisely for 3 years now, so I can say that's what exactly happened with this guy. So, and for me, the good thing is like I learned so much without having to live those experiences. So when you have intergenerational teams, and our interns are teenagers, like they're in second year engineering or third year engineering, so we learn something else there. So in a day, we're working with people aged 19 to 94, right? And the amount of things we are doing, okay, trying to figure out, okay, who's teaching, okay, this person needs tech support, okay, what does this person needs, okay. So I agree, tech is by the way. And firstly, it's COVID, so there's nothing else I can do but do it. But if you look at scalability, and if you look at the next generation of seniors who are going to come and retire, even in retirement homes, are highly tech savvy. They have, like, it wouldn't fly off the bat. Like my mother is, she's 60 now, but she uses everything, right? Alexa and Google Home and this and that. She can make it all talk to each other. She's really high tech. And maybe influenced by, of course, having a daughter who's crazy about tech, so it rubs off. But I think what you said is fair point. I think there is no solution. It's the environment, and it's not just the environment within companies. It's also at now the public health in me is saying at a policy level, right? Because if you look at the tenets of Canadian healthy aging, right? They are like what healthy eating, social connectedness, don't like quit smoking, drinking, move more. But then there's nowhere housing, there's nowhere the environment, the community, like you have a walkability score, but you don't have a connectivity score. And now it's only in the pandemic you see companies are now finally delivering groceries or chores that you need to have, people can come and do. Versus in different societies, which are not like in different countries, these things are more available. Like gig economy is now catching up in Canada. It wasn't something that was there. So I think a lot of factors as an economy, as a post-COVID world, we won't have a lot of things that we see now. And we also don't know what that is. It's just conjecture, but I think there will be a difference. And and so I agree with you. So yeah. so so Paul.
Yes. And I have another question, but you've partly answered that. So I just wanted to sneak in a question. You touched on self-efficacy, or what I would call self-efficacy. Do you think it can be learned or modeled, or do you think that it's just innate?
So tell me more about what do you call self-efficacy?
Well, so let's say when someone is widowed, do they just resign themselves? Do they make efforts? Do they learn about efforts they could make and make those efforts? Do they persist in those efforts? Do they, in the end, succeed to some extent? To me, these are questions of whether you're doing something efficacious for yourself or whether you're unwilling to do it. I know people who were widowed who really weren't willing to do a thing, even when they understood the importance of it.
Yeah, and again, we are talking about people. I actually don't think this conversation is limited to older adults or seniors. I mean, everybody's different. You can have people who are married and employed, but they're also not doing things that are good for themselves, and they're resigned to, whatever lifestyle they have. So it's not unique. And the answer is it depends. It depends on the person, and you have stories of tremendous recovery from very dramatic life events, and you have stories of people who are resigning and not able to recover when crisis happens. When it's more common, like this COVID crisis, I think people will recover holding hands together. And again, environment is important, I would say, in our residences, despite of all this negative media and things that we had to go through. Those who are there, I think, are coming out of there together and celebrating together and being closer together, just like that person that I talked to you about who chose to call for their friends to make sure they're okay every day, so that at least they have the company of that phone call when they were completely isolated. Yeah, I think supportive environment helps, but at the end of the day, Paul, as you're saying yourself, it's up to the person.
Good, thank you.
We could, as much as possible up to a point, creating that ease of access to, if people are at home, to access the services and communities and circles and friends, to the extent we can facilitate that in some shape or form through technology or other means. For sure, it'll make a difference. But if somebody's resigned that they are not going to avail themselves of those services, there's not really much you can do. I would hope that majority of the people, and even if it's not the majority, it's still worth trying, right? It's like, even if you do change the life of one person or help to change the life of one person, then it's worth trying.
Maybe another person sees it and gets the spark, catches the bug. Yeah. Well, could I just ask then, and again, you've partly answered, but what advice would you have for a new company like us?
Yeah, I'm not the greatest with advice, but I think things that we talked about, that whatever solutions we're trying to make, really need to figure out to make them personal, and I think focus more on creating the environment as opposed to telling people what to do and how to solve their problems, because at the end of the day, it's up to them, and also what it is up to them may be different from one person to another. So you're trying to sort of come up with one thing that you think is going to solve this problem of isolation, which is a huge problem. We all know the impact that it has on mental health, on physical health of people. The solutions, though, have to be complex and multiple. And so if people focus on creating that environment, then I think it will make it easier for people to solve these problems for themselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think this is a redundant question in your case, but I'm going to ask you because we ask everybody, so I want to be fair. If people want to find you or find about Chartwell, where should they look up?
Well, it's chartwell.com is our website. My personal phone number, 905-501-4709, or vvolодарski@chartwell.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Vlad. This was such a great
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you very much for this conversation.
It is my pleasure. Great to meet you both.
Thank you.